Picture this. Right now, while you're sitting and listening, someone close to you is shaking under a truth they've carried for years. Not days, not months, but years. A feeling so deep it has quietly shaped every look they've given you, every silence between words, every seemingly ordinary sentence. And now, they are finally about to speak it. This is not simple romance. This is the psyche pushing itself into awareness. What you thought was normal friendship or emotional distance has actually been a slow, unstoppable movement of the unconscious toward revelation. If you are ready to understand the hidden psychological meaning behind this confession, take a moment now to engage. The unconscious has been preparing this moment far longer than the conscious mind realizes, even before the person was aware of it themselves. In Jungian psychology, the deeper mind is far more intelligent and perceptive than everyday thinking. What appears as a sudden confession is almost never truly sudden. For years, sometimes from the very first encounter, the unconscious has been gathering impressions, emotions, and inner reactions connected to you. These fragments slowly build an internal image of you, powerful, idealized, almost larger than life. This develops through dreams, sudden waves of attraction, repetitive intrusive thoughts, and meaningful coincidences that feel charged with significance. The unconscious begins to treat you as something deeply important, weaving your presence into the fabric of their inner narrative. At the same time, it projects hidden traits, unlived potential, and inner desires onto you. Gradually, this emotional charge accumulates like pressure inside a sealed container. The person may try to suppress or ignore these feelings, but the unconscious continues its quiet work in the background, waiting for the psychological timing to mature. This demonstrates how autonomous the unconscious truly is. It always moves the psyche toward wholeness. The confession only arrives when the inner system decides that keeping the truth hidden would block further growth. This is why such moments often feel destined, as though something larger has been guiding everything from the start. The figure they love is not simply you as you are in reality, but a projection of their own unlived inner world, expressed through archetypal patterns like anima or animus, the inner contrasexual image carrying qualities they have not yet integrated. When someone experiences deep, silent attachment, they are often not relating to the actual person fully, but to a symbolic inner image formed within their psyche. You become the carrier of their missing emotional and psychological pieces, appearing as ideal tenderness, strength, mystery, or depth their conscious identity lacks. If this resonates with your experience, reflect on it for a moment. This projection becomes powerful because it is continuously energized by the unconscious. You are experienced as emotionally magnetic, even archetypal, appearing in dreams and fantasies with symbolic intensity. What feels like love directed at you is, on a deeper level, the psyche attempting to reconnect with its own neglected or split-off aspects, often shaped by childhood patterns, emotional wounds, or unresolved internal conflicts. So the approaching confession is not just a romantic event. It is the psyche reaching a turning point where projection begins to break and return inward. When the truth is spoken, it becomes a moment of potential integration, where the individual can begin reclaiming their anima or animus and recognizing the qualities they once placed outside themselves. Silent love, held over long periods, often becomes a bridge toward individuation, the psychological process of becoming whole. Because unexpressed emotion does not disappear, it turns inward. The energy that is not released externally becomes internal pressure, forcing the psyche to engage more deeply with itself rather than escaping through immediate expression. In Jungian thought, individuation is the lifelong unfolding of becoming one's true self through the integration of conscious and unconscious layers. When someone carries unspoken love for an extended time, that emotional charge does not remain idle. Instead, it intensifies inner processing. Every withheld word, every restrained impulse, every silent moment strengthens the internal image of you. Over time, this deepens dreams, intensifies fantasy life, and enriches inner dialogue. At the same time, it reveals hidden aspects of the person's own personality. Traits they once attributed to you, such as sensitivity, courage, creativity, or emotional depth, begin to feel like parts of themselves they have not yet fully owned. The long silence prevents premature release of projection, allowing psychological maturation. When confession finally happens, it often emerges not as impulsive emotion, but as a developmental milestone. The person has, often unknowingly, engaged in shadow work, facing vulnerability, fear of rejection, and self-worth issues in symbolic form. If this connects with your inner world, you can reflect by noticing it. Through this process, the energy of love shifts from external fixation to internal growth. The romantic image becomes a bridge between the ego and deeper self. What was once projection begins transforming into self-recognition. The confession becomes a sign that integration is now possible. Confession itself disrupts the persona, the psychological mask constructed to function socially. In Jungian terms, the persona helps us adapt to society while hiding more fragile or contradictory emotional realities. A person who has silently loved for years often reinforces a strong outer identity, calm, detached, rational, or emotionally controlled. The silence itself becomes part of that mask. But when confession finally occurs, it breaks this structure open. Suddenly, what was hidden beneath controlled behavior becomes visible. The difference between outer appearance and inner emotional reality is exposed. This rupture can be psychologically intense because it forces both the individual and others to see what was previously concealed. People around them may no longer see the predictable persona, but someone capable of deep emotional vulnerability. This exposure activates anxiety, shame, and fear of judgment because it disrupts the ego's stability. At the same time, the shadow, containing suppressed emotions like longing, insecurity, jealousy, or dependency, emerges into awareness. The confession forces direct confrontation with these hidden parts. The individual can no longer rationalize or avoid them. Yet, this is also a threshold of growth. The breakdown of the persona allows shadow integration, where previously rejected emotions become acknowledged and accepted. This is how psychological wholeness begins to form, by reclaiming what was split off. What appears as romantic longing is often the psyche's deeper call toward wholeness. In Jungian understanding, romantic projection is not random. It is symbolic. It reflects the psyche's attempt to restore balance by selecting another person as a carrier of missing inner qualities. When someone silently loves you for a long time, they unconsciously place onto you qualities they feel disconnected from within themselves. You become a symbolic figure holding their unlived emotional and psychological potential. If this idea resonates, notice your internal reaction. This creates inner tension that cannot remain static. Dreams, fantasies, and emotional fluctuations begin to intensify. The psyche uses this tension as a signal, pointing toward imbalance, perhaps too much rational control or too much emotional suppression. Eventually, this pressure demands movement. The unconscious begins pushing toward awareness and integration. The confession, then, is not only emotional, it is symbolic of inner restructuring. It marks the beginning of reclaiming projections and integrating disowned aspects of the self. The accumulated psychic tension of unspoken love continues to build energy that demands transformation. In psychological terms, unexpressed emotion does not vanish. It accumulates as psychic charge. Every suppressed feeling, every unspoken word adds intensity to the unconscious field. Over time, this creates a kind of internal pressure system. The conscious mind may try to distract, rationalize, or suppress it, but the unconscious continues strengthening the symbolic image of the other person. If this feels familiar, reflect on it internally. This energy manifests through vivid dreams, emotional turbulence, inner fantasy, and symbolic coincidences. The longer the silence continues, the more unstable the inner balance becomes. Eventually, the psyche can no longer maintain equilibrium in suppression. This tension is not meaningless. It serves transformation. It brings unconscious material closer to awareness, fears, desires, repressed traits, and unrealized potential. When the pressure becomes too strong, confession becomes inevitable, not just as emotional release, but as psychological recalibration. After confession, projection begins to withdraw. The energy previously locked in longing becomes available for personal development. This marks a shift toward individuation, where inner energy is redirected toward building a more integrated self. True confession arrives only when the self, the deeper organizing principle of the psyche, decides the person is ready. In Jungian thought, the self is the central force guiding wholeness, ensuring psychological growth unfolds at the right time. When someone has carried silent love for years, that inner image exists in a split state, kept outside awareness until the psyche determines integration is safe. The self does not rush this process. It waits until emotional strength, psychological stability, and inner readiness align. When that moment arrives, everything begins to shift naturally. Dreams, intuition, and coincidences often increase, signaling readiness. The ego becomes capable of handling vulnerability without collapse. At that point, confession is not disruption, it is integration. The person begins reclaiming what they projected outward. The emotional energy returns inward, supporting growth rather than fixation. This is a key step in individuation, where fragmentation is slowly replaced by wholeness. The self guides this entire movement, ensuring that what was split returns in a way that strengthens rather than destabilizes the personality. For the one receiving such a confession, the experience is not merely romantic. It becomes an archetypal encounter, a symbolic moment that touches deeper layers of the psyche. You are not only receiving affection, you are entering a psychological mirror where something unconscious is being reflected back to you. This activates your own inner world. It can awaken hidden traits, unresolved feelings, or unrecognized aspects of yourself. you may begin to feel that what they saw in you is connected to something you have not fully claimed within yourself. If you feel this, pause and observe it internally. The confession carries archetypal weight, similar to the idea of the divine beloved or inner counterpart. It mirrors ancient psychological themes of union, recognition, and transformation. It may feel overwhelming, emotional, or strangely meaningful because it touches something deeper than everyday interaction. It is not just about two individuals. It is about inner development on both sides. It becomes a moment where projection, identity, and unconscious material all intersect. Ultimately, what looks like romantic expression is also psychological evolution. The unconscious has been guiding both individuals toward greater awareness and integration. What has been held in silence is now moving toward expression, not to create attachment, but to restore balance within the psyche. Stay aware as this unfolds. When the confession arrives, meet it not only emotionally, but consciously, with the understanding that something deeper is happening beneath the surface. A symbolic process of integration, wholeness, and inner alignment is taking place. This is the psyche moving toward completion.